Danger. You are now in the zone. The Danger Zone on Jumpin' 89.1 FM.
Back, I would like to introduce a guest that we have.
Was that Young, Gifted, and Black by Big Daddy Kane, by the way?
No.
Oh.
Donnie Hathaway.
Okay.
So, the guest in the Danger Zone today, former state representative, city councilman of Roxbury, Carlos Henriquez. Wanted to actually invite him and join the conversation of Ferguson and the different things going on, and I wanted to get your insight on it, brother. And also, you know, for the listeners that may not be familiar or whenever they'll Google the name and some information pops up, I wanted to kind of just not have an elephant in the room and discuss, you know, within reason what happened with your situation, so that way we can get that going and get into the conversation that we're talking about already. No doubt. So welcome to the show, Carlos Henriquez.
Hey. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you brothers having me on.
No doubt.
Am I loud enough in here? Because I can barely hear myself.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Yeah. So I guess we'll address the elephant first. You know, as many people might know or might not know, in 2012, I was falsely accused of domestic violence. In 2014, I was wrongfully convicted, expelled from the Massachusetts House of Representatives, and have been living with that verdict since. I'm in the course of an appeal to hopefully overturn or get a new trial. But, you know, that doesn't stop the fact that I love my community, I love my people, and will continue to work and represent them as best I know how.
What's good on? Actually, we're all clowns over here in the Danger Zone, you know what I mean? And I'm sitting here, I just can't help but I'm looking at On and On shirt, man. This is the best dress I've seen On and On in period, I think my whole entire lifetime. He's wearing a white shirt.
Yes.
Yes, a white
We're going to get into that later.
A white sweater with a collared shirt tucked out. How are you feeling today again? How are you feeling right now this very second on? With that shirt on right now?
I'm going through a spiritual cleansing. I'm going to talk about that later. But we have Carlos Henriquez who just addressed some pretty big stuff. I want to ask Carlos, what has it been like since then, sort of walking around with that scarlet letter, and how is it for you day in and day out, or how has it been in the community for you?
That's a good question. I actually describe that often in private the same way as wearing the scarlet letter. I get a lot of mixed reactions. So personally, it's tough. You know, it's tough to grow up in a neighborhood and work your whole life to serve your community, and then have that taken away from you because of a lie. But I get a mixed reaction. I get strange. Well, I shouldn't say strange. I get older women that I don't even know, will approach me in the street and ask me to keep fighting, will ask me to consider running for office again, will tell me that they believe in me and respect the work that I was able to do for my community. There are times that it's uncomfortable. You know, it builds anxiety sometimes, whether I'm out in public, whether I'm grocery shopping, whether I'm walking down the street. But at the end of the day, I have to be comfortable with myself. I have to look in the mirror and remember who I am. I know the truth of the matter. The young lady knows the truth of the matter. God knows the truth of the matter, and I can live with that. I have to live with that.
Wow. So what was it like when you were behind the wall? As far as, I mean, obviously people knew who you were and where you came from.
Oh man, it sucked. To be frank with you, I mean, you know, growing up in this neighborhood, you're not a stranger to have friends and even family that have been behind the wall. But to experience it yourself, is something I wouldn't recommend to anybody, friend or foe. I don't have any great war stories. I only spent 100 days, 3.5 months in a county facility, which is much different than state or even more difficult county facilities. But I will tell you, it's a scarring experience to be removed from society physically. Right. And then to be put inside of a box behind fences and being told, when you shower, when you eat, what you eat. It's an experience that I wish nobody had to go through. So it's, you have your own, everybody has their own scars and wears that their own way.
And I remember when you're going through that ordeal, reading in the papers, you actually tried to make a case for yourself. You were in, if I remember correctly, the State House.
Yep.
I mean, that in itself took a lot of balls. Because already, the verdict was in, so to speak.
Yeah.
And the papers pretty much vilified you and all that. And here you go, standing in front of your peers. I mean, that had to be a very difficult experience.
It was, but I want to be clear with people. I had the option. So people saw me being brought into the state house in shackles, around the wrists, around the waist, and around the feet. I had the option to stay in jail and not address my peers, and I felt like they were going to expel me either way. But I wanted to do a couple of things. One, I wanted to show what we usually don't see, what happens to everybody else in our community. A lot of times people in our community get kind of written off or disposed of, and they don't show up in the newspaper, and they don't get a second thought, and we don't think about what they go through. So I wanted to do that, and I also wanted to look my colleagues in the eye and tell them the truth, and see which way they would move based on that truth. Politics the state house is about laws and rules, and there was a rule called 16A that says that you have to have certain character. If you commit a crime against one of these rules in 16A, it was really made for taking bribes or moving contracts, things that have gotten previous speakers ousted from the house and then even put behind bars as well, or actually, I should say put on probation, some behind bars. It didn't apply to this situation. And for this situation to get me expelled, they should either alter their rules or they should be true to them. And that's something that I feel like they didn't do. So I wanted to highlight that.
During that whole period, it seemed like it was back to back to back. They went after Diane Wilkerson, Chuck Turner, and then your case came up. Did it seem to you like there was something in the water, so to speak, like a cleansing? I mean, sort of black cleansing.
I am a conspiracy theorist, but I try not to. I don't think there was really a conspiracy. I think it was. Well, I don't know if there was really a conspiracy. I saw some things that I didn't like. I think that what happens with certain people in our society, whether you're elected or not, because of the color of your skin, might not happen to you if you have a different color of skin. So, one of the most interesting things to me, and it's not my words, people can look it up, it's still online. Howie Carr had interesting. He wrote a kind of a joke speech for the day I was going to be expelled, right. And he listed all the crimes that have happened in the state house or people that have records in the state house, and those are things that you've never heard of, and these are people that are still serving, will continue to serve. And won't be vilified in the papers the same way. So I do look at the disparity in the treatment of it, but I don't know enough to see if there was a conspiracy there.
Let me say something real quick. I did see that too, and that was crazy to me. You know what I mean? And it seems how people overlook things like that. Now let me ask you this: you're a celebrity here. You know what I mean? You do your thing. How do you feel about the justice system as far as the way it went because of who you were versus, some average Joe? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm conflicted in a bunch of different ways, right? So you grow up in this neighborhood, and you know that the justice system doesn't necessarily work for you. I've been stopped by the police enough times, and I know that depending on how I'm dressed, I'm going to be a certain way. I'm going to be treated a certain way. Once they figure out my name while I was in office, then the treatment might switch. It's interesting going into the court, being in that court system, going into the courthouse. I saw all the elements at play. So Jared Remy had just been in Middlesex County, and of course, that had a different face to it, or put a terrible face on domestic violence. And I want to be clear that domestic violence is a very serious issue, and I don't want to take away from it as I defend myself. I don't want to overlook the serious issue of domestic violence. But it is skewed one way. It's skewed when you walk into the courtroom, how much money you have to pay for an attorney. You're in a courtroom where the DAs know the judge and work with the judge every day. They work with the prosecutors. They work with the police officers. They have working relationships. So when you enter that as a stranger, no matter who you are, whether you are an elected official, whether you are Joe Citizen, you're kind of the cards are stacked against you. So you're constantly in that uphill battle mode.
See, that's major, and people don't look at just those particulars. Like when you take like Johnny Cochran, people used to say, oh, Johnny Cochran will always get you off and X, Y, and Z, but he costs X amount of dollars. You're not paying for him. You're paying for his name and his relationships that he has within, the justice system. And that's the same thing even on a smaller scale. You know what I mean? Because they all, probably drink coffee together and they do business. You know what I mean? Whether they're for you or against you, that's just the way that the ball bounces. You know what I mean?
I want to just to play devil's advocate real quick with your case, Carlos. Now, from what I understand, this is a girl sort of like in her early 20s,
right,
who was going to school to study, get the criminal system and politics, this, that, and the third. And then she came upon you and wanted to interview you.
Right.
And then, one thing led to another, and you sort of got into a sort of relationship with her. Hindsight, because this is generally what the barbershop was saying.
Okay.
What's this established politician, in his 30s, doing messing with this young girl?
Well,
I mean, hindsight is 20/20.
Right, hindsight is 20/20. So just to be clear about it, she was 24, an adult, graduated college, was doing a paper. So when we initially spoke, it was on a professional basis. After that, she contacted me, and I moved things from my work email and work phone to a private email and private phone. I'm not married. She's not married. There's no. I get the barbershop talk, but
right.
There's no scandal there. You know what I mean? I mean, we're consenting adults. We had been out 5 times. That was our 6th time out. There were no arguments. There was no fighting. There were no precursors to that. Right. I think alcohol on her part might have fueled a little bit of it. But still, that's hindsight as well, and that's me speculating.
Now, listen, I've shaken a girl or two in my past. I've also mushed. I plead guilty. Could this have been a case of a simple shake or a mush turned, or there was nothing?
Not even. I've been in relationships where we've screamed and yelled at each other, where we play fought. This was none of that. This was, to be honest with you, this was me picking her up at 2:00 in the morning after sending a very direct text. I won't curse on air, but it said basically send me your address if you are down to. And you can fill in the blank there. The address came back.
Yeah.
The address came back. I went on my way to pick her up. We parked around the corner, got in the back seat. I won't fill in the details there, but most people in the barbershop can figure out from there. We were going to. Then I gave her the option of either coming back to my house or I was going home. Her mother, she was staying with her mother at that night, and her mother didn't want her to go, so I gave her the option of either make a decision. It's your decision to make. She decided to come with. We did exchange some words, just some snippy stuff like, stop tripping, you're not my girl, and kind of words went back and forth, but still nothing physical, nothing to think that anything major was going to happen. We get into Boston. We're on Forsyth Street in Huntington, and she's, getting upset. And mind you, she's in the back seat of the car. It's a car ride from Arlington, right? So I was originally charged with arrested for kidnapping. And she said, the first police report says that I drove around with her for 2 hours in the city of Boston while beating on her. Well, in the testimony that comes out, she's in the back seat of the car the whole ride. Right. It's not a 2-hour ride. It's a ride from the house in Arlington to basically Roxbury or Northeastern, where she gets out of the car, out of the back door on her own volition, and walks off. 2 hours later, I'm at home. I'm awakened to my doorbell ringing, and 2 cops are at the door saying I've kidnapped her. Damn. I've robbed her, and I 3 counts of assault and battery.
It's Dane, it's difficult enough to text and drive. Try beating on somebody for 2 hours
in the back seat.
Well,
it's crazy.
But I will say this, Carlos, regardless of who's wrong or who's right, this, that, and the third, you have obviously, you've paid your time. And you've beyond that, your reputation was at stake. Very high profile ousting from public office, and certainly and of course Ray Rice is in the news this week and all that. You've certainly paid your dues, and I am for people being accountable for their actions.
As I am.
But certainly once someone has paid their debt to society, we can't torture somebody for the rest of their life. So with that said, what's going on these days, and how easy is it to even get a job?
Well, it's not. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, but more for other people. I mean, I was able to come home and get employment because of people that I know and relationships I had established. I'm not doing what I used to do. I'm not doing what I love, but I am able to find work and pay the bills. The challenge is for anyone else that comes home that's paid their debt to society. They continue to pay that debt. For me and others, there's probation fees. They keep you in the court system. So I'm on probation for another 1.5 years. There's mandated fees around that. And others aren't as fortunate. Others haven't had a career in politics where they have those working relationships where they can come home. So now you're home. You have fees to pay. You have to go to see your probation officer. Right. This is something you can look up on Google. This is something that employers find rather quickly. So what do we say to people if you paid your debt, but you're not able to work, you're not able to feed your kids, you're not able to drive, you're not able to go to your kids' games? That starts to destroy a person. It starts to destroy families, and it starts to destroy a community.
Right.
I don't know. It's crazy. But actually, we're about to take a quick break, jump to some music, you know what I mean, while we deliberate to the side a little bit. D-Wiz, what you got over there cooking for us, man?
Danger. You are now in the zone. The Danger Zone on Jumpin' 89.1 FM.